Hey everyone, talking about the Freedmen's Bureau today. Not a lot to look at, but we want to talk about this Freedmen's Bureau. Their biggest primary goal, this was actually started before Lincoln passed away. The goal is to help former slaves. It's an office set up, a department set up to help former slaves. It's actually part of the War or Defense Department to help former slaves, also known as, just like the name implies, freedmen. So there are four big things they really take care of that we want to make a note of. First off, they're going to distribute food and clothing to freedmen. Right after the war, this office, this not just one little office, but across the country, they're going to distribute food and clothing to former slaves. Knowing that a lot of slaves have little to no ownership of anything, they're going to make sure former slaves get food and clothing. They're also going to provide medical services. Think about what we talked about at the beginning of the year, our unit, the life of a slave, providing basic medical services to slaves, helping them live a better, fuller life physically. Also, one of the lasting pieces of this, they're going to start and open up public schools for African American children and even universities. Howard University, if you've ever heard of that, is a result of the Freedmen's Bureau. Start schools and universities where these kids can go. And then lastly, they're going to also help these freedmen acquire land. Some of the land was confiscated from former Confederates. Some of it's land that Confederates just abandoned. Some of it's land out west, but land that these people can start a life with. We're also going to see this is not part of the Freedmen's Bureau, but there are going to be some other improvements as well that we're going to see during the Reconstruction era for African Americans. There are going to be some other improvements. Between 1868 to roughly 1880, we're going to see, it's recorded, 16 African Americans, the first 16 African Americans are going to get elected to the House of Representatives. A lot of them from former Confederate states, because now African Americans, these freedmen, are given the power to vote and also run for office. We're also going to see two more elected to the Senate, that upper house, the Senate. Probably the most well-known ones, a lot of times they'll use him for a lot of things about African American history, is Senator Hiram Revels from Mississippi. The last other little improvement I want to talk to you a bit about is the Freedmen's Bank. Just mentioned this. Seemed like the Freedmen's Bureau, but it doesn't do quite as much, and it wasn't nearly as successful. But it's also another way for African Americans to get loans. And it did help some, not a lot, not as many as the Bureau. Also get land, a place to start a home, a lot of them doing farming kind of work. So the Freedmen's Bureau was there to help African Americans. You can see these four things, and there were other things as well, and probably the most notable during Reconstruction are the amount of African Americans that were able to get themselves voted into Congress. We'll see how and why that dies back as we finish out this piece of Reconstruction, but to just give you an overview. If you have any questions, let me know.